Humanities, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the introduction to satire that you should have viewed yesterday, where I had maybe about a 10 to 15 minute like informational video where I go over some key terms and kind of explain what satire is. Then you were supposed to check out the Onion website, which is a well-known satirical news source. So don't take anything that you see on there as 100% fact. Also, don't regard it as like disinformation, because in the case of disinformation that you hear a lot about in the news today, that's something that is like trying to be portrayed as factual and true and just knowingly like mislead people in the wrong direction. In the case of satire or like a website like the Onion, it's assumed that the reader knows that this is satire and that they're saying something that is outlandish and over the top, and often misleading and not accurate, but they're doing it in a way to like mock things and make fun of some issue that's playing out, maybe politically or a social narrative in the country. So that's more what satire is. It kind of has that joking and snarky tone to it, whether it's going to be a written source or whether it's like the guy I profiled in the other two attachment videos that I had yesterday named Ryan Long. He's a Canadian guy that is making his living on YouTube today, and he's kind of just making fun of everything that is unfolding politically in the United States during this post-COVID world, which there's no shortage of stuff to make fun of and to mock in this day and age. I think satire is super important because I think we need to maintain our sense of humor, and I think you can actually provoke critical thinking in people and get people to question things and analyze things further through the use of satire. And if it's done well, you're doing it in kind of a fun way where people on either side of this like political or social issue a lot of times can appreciate the satire and see the humor and some of the absurdity that's playing out maybe. So the assignment this week that I have for you, and this will be the last like big project that we're doing in class, I want you to create a piece of satire for me on a topic that interests you. So it's going to be pretty broad, all right? Just like when we did the retelling of a Western religious story, or creating a piece of Eastern religion, like a piece of artwork. Those are very broad categories where you can kind of go in a lot of different directions, depending on what interests you and what you're into. Same is true for this satire assignment. I really don't care what your topic is. It should be something from more modern day, and it should tie into kind of what we've covered in humanities class, just like the struggles of being a human. So that leaves it open to modern day politics. It could be open to any of the issues that people are facing today on a big societal level. And then I want you have the option to do it in like the Onion style, where you're going to write me a little article, a satirical article, or you could do it more like Ryan Long, where you're going to record yourself and you're going to do a brief video message for me that'll be a piece of satire. I don't care. If you're camera shy, then you'll probably want to handwrite it. You'll probably want to actually type it out on a Google Doc for me. If you hate typing stuff up and you don't have the best grammar, then maybe doing a recording. And it could be an audio or like a visual recording too, like an actual where I can see you. I really don't care. Any of those would be very acceptable for this assignment. And what I'm going to have you do this week, I'm going to post a Q&A, but you don't really have to give me any kind of lengthy response or do a ton of critical thinking for this week's Q&A. And as long as you respond on time, I will still give you full points for it. And that'll help hopefully boost a lot of your grades in that category that's weighted at 25% of your quarterly grade. For this week's Q&A, I want you to tell me basically what are you going to do for your satire, creating a piece of satire assignment. So I'm going to ask you, are you going to do a written version of satire, or are you going to do a recording? And then I'm going to ask you what your topic is, like zero in on something. It could be something politics. It could tie into foreign policy. It could tie into something going on internally, domestic policy in the country, some new law that's coming out or a controversial issue. Or it could just tie into looking at pop culture, looking at Hollywood, making fun of celebrities. I really don't care. You could write a piece of satire, kind of directed at TikTok or kids using their phones too much. Any sort of societal issue out there that you think is interesting, because that's a big part. I don't want you to feel like, oh man, I got to do another, writing paper type assignment. That's not what this should be. This is a chance for you to be creative and zero in on a topic that kind of interests you anyway. And then you're going to get creative and get kind of funny with it, and using that sarcasm and irony, right? If you have questions about how to do any of this, I would definitely encourage you to come on in and talk to me or shoot me an email, and I'll try to give you more clarification in the notes, or I might even attach a Google Doc that'll be kind of a rubric for this. Just view that over and make sure you stick to the requirements. But basically, you can sum it up as you're making a piece of satire on some modern issue, and it can be written or it can be a recording. But I'm asking you that it is in the context of like a piece of satire where you're using your brain, looking at a real issue. You're probably making a stance on something, or you have some sort of a message you're trying to get across, but you're doing it in that snarky, sarcastic, kind of funny tone. All right. Hopefully that makes sense to you, and I hope you can get creative and really enjoy and get into this assignment. And I'd imagine this is one that I would rather be in class for it, because I think we would have a lot of questions, and I'd probably have a lot of one-on-one discussions. Of course, most of you are working remotely, so this is the best we can do for this year. I'm going to set the deadline out, and then in the meantime, this week I do plan to give you a fair amount of work time over the next week to complete this assignment. And this week and next week I'll be posting a few other kind of random topics on different things that are not just related to satire, but we're going to kind of wrap up some of the humanities lessons that I've been meaning to get into and just hadn't had a chance to yet. So that's what we have kind of through to the end of the year. Final thing for you, make sure you are getting assignments in. If there's anything that you've missed up to this point, I take everything late except for the Q&A assignments. The last Q&A or two that we have, get those done before the deadline. And then remember, we're about to wrap up with those. So if you don't have your journals all caught up, I'd highly encourage you to do that too with some of your work time this week. Okay, I hope you enjoy this assignment, and hit me up whenever you have any questions or need a little help.